Social media companies would be legally required to keep Australians safe online or face strong penalties for breaching new digital duty of care laws. The proposal is part of the Albanese government's bid to improve online safety for children and is in addition to its move to ban under-16s from the platforms.
However, the announcement comes as the government suffers further blows to another bill that aims to curb the spread of misinformation and disinformation online. Political reporter Evelyn Manfield joins us now from Parliament House. Evelyn, what's the intent behind these new bills?
Bridget, this is a digital duty of care, and so the intent is to better protect users from harm online. And so the way this will work is putting a legal obligation on social media companies to take steps towards preventing harm against users online. So the Communications Minister, Michelle Rowland, in a speech last night says it'll be a step forward really for the Online Safety Act. The way that currently works is that people can complain about things like cyber abuse online, but she wants to go a step further and actually prevent this sort of harm from happening in the first place by getting social media companies to really create a safe environment to operate in the first place, like I say. So she says the way that'll work is through strong penalties for social media companies that either seriously or continue to do the wrong thing. Exactly what those penalties will be is unclear. She wants to legislate this, so it'll have to go through the sort of normal parliamentary process. It is somewhat similar to moves that have been made in both Europe and the UK, and it does follow that action or proposed action that we saw from the government last week, wanting to ban kids under 16 from using social media. So just really another crackdown by the government here in Canberra against those social media companies.
Yeah, look, there's a lot happening in the legislative online space right now. Can you update us? What's the latest with the government's mis and disinformation bill?
So this is a push by the government to try and tackle mis and disinformation, which of course can be dangerous online. It points to examples around vaccinations and misinformation there, but also some that we saw after the stabbing attacks at the Bondi shopping centre. So that's sort of the motivation behind this. But the government has sort of hit a bit of a bump along the road in getting this through Parliament. The reason I say that is because Independent Senator David Pocock, who could be a really key vote for the government, has said that he would oppose this unless serious changes are made. The reason he says that is because there's been a parliamentary committee that's been hearing from experts. They've raised concerns about the implication that this could have on free speech, some saying it's a bit of overreach. A really interesting example from Anne Toomey, a constitutional law expert that our viewers I'm sure would know well. She did raise concerns about this example of in the early days of COVID, there was some commentary spread online about it being an airborne disease that wasn't sort of recognised as correct at the time, but then later turned out to be true. So her concern was that under this bill, if that was in place at this in 2020, then we would have seen that information wiped from the internet. So there's concerns around free speech and also things like putting the social media companies in charge of what is considered to be true. People like David Pocock have suggested that they're probably not the right people to be judging that. So there is a recognition here in Canberra that mis and disinformation is a problem, but questions around whether this bill is necessarily the right way to tackle it. So it'll be interesting to see if the government can get the numbers to pass this one through the Senate.
Yeah, it's complex work. Thanks for breaking it down for us this morning, Evelyn.
Okay, let's head to the United States now because President-elect Donald Trump has been back in the White House overnight meeting Joe Biden. North America correspondent Barbara Miller is following it all for us. Barbara, good morning. So a series of high-profile nominations have been announced today again. Can you talk us through those?
Well, I think the one that is raising most eyebrows is Matt Gaetz, nominated by Donald Trump for his Attorney General. Now, he's a firebrand, a loyalist, an absolute MAGA Republican. If confirmed, he would oversee the department that until last year there was a probe ongoing into him by the Department of Justice regarding sex trafficking allegations. Now, no charges charges were ever brought there, and that probe was dropped. But Matt Gaetz remains under investigation by a House Ethics Committee, a bipartisan committee. So that's certainly come as a shock to many. His name wasn't on a shortlist being touted around. We've also heard that Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democratic Congresswoman, has been nominated as the Director of National Intelligence, a woman who in 2016 was backing Bernie Sanders on the left of the Democratic Party, ran against Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination in 2020, and then has since become a MAGA Republican. And then another one, Marco Rubio, the Florida senator, has been nominated by Donald Trump for Secretary of State. That's been rumoured for a couple of days now confirmed that is Donald Trump's pick. Once a critic of Donald Trump, the two used to name call one another, but has since also turned into a very loyal supporter. So definitely these appointments showing that those who have shown extreme loyalty to Donald Trump, who are MAGA Republicans now, at least at their core, are being rewarded with these nominations.
Yeah, these nominations are certainly interesting. And Barbara, Donald Trump met Joe Biden at the White House a few hours ago. What exactly did they talk about at the meeting?
Well, press were only allowed into the first 30 or 40 seconds of that meeting. Really quite an extraordinary scene. Joe Biden greeting Donald Trump in the Oval Office. There was a fire behind them, a roaring fire. The two men just exchanged pleasantries. Joe Biden congratulating Donald Trump on his election victory and saying that he would ensure a smooth transition. Donald Trump appearing to acknowledge that Joe Biden had extended him this courtesy, saying that politics sometimes wasn't very nice, but today it was a nice world. Donald Trump didn't invite Joe Biden in 2020 for a similar meeting. We then heard that they met behind closed doors for about 2 hours. The White House says that discussion was substantive and covered domestic and foreign policy issues, and that Donald Trump came with a list of questions, although the White House wouldn't go into what those were. So 8 days after this sweeping victory by Donald Trump, certainly very much a sense that things are moving very, very fast here in terms of the transition to his new administration, which will, of course, kick off on January the 20th with his inauguration.
Yeah, certainly a lot of movement. Barbara, thank you.
Well, major flight delays continue for travellers left stranded by the eruption of an Indonesian volcano on Sunday. Airlines, including Qantas, Jetstar and Virgin, cancelled flights in and out of Bali after Mount Lewatobi, Lucky, spewed a 9-kilometre ash column into the sky.
I mean, it's a bit stressful not knowing what's going to happen next, when we are going to be getting home.
Israel has hit Beirut's southern suburbs with airstrikes for the second day in a row. It issued evacuation orders prior to the attacks in Lebanon's capital, which it claims targeted Hezbollah facilities and interests. This comes as peace talks stall between Israel and Hamas, with the latter demanding a complete end to the war, while Israel is only willing to consider a temporary ceasefire.
The other issue, of course, has been that the entire Hamas leadership has now been assassinated by the Israelis, so it's very difficult to pinpoint who is the address to negotiate with, and indeed who can enforce a decision.
Doctors say they're being forced to ration care due to a worldwide shortage in IV fluids, and they're pointing the finger at wellness companies. These companies sell customers the promise of hangover cures and enhanced immunity to the tune of hundreds of dollars per session. Australia's Therapeutic Goods Administration says it is managing the shortfall of IV fluids as a priority.
For the first time in 25 years, Victoria police members will walk off the job today, escalating tensions with the state government over a pay dispute. The Police Association of Victoria says officers at the Police Academy in Glen Waverley and the Broadmeadows Police Station will strike for up to an hour, and these will be the first of several rolling stoppages across the state. The association says it has approached the Fair Work Commission to help resolve the dispute.